and it'll be a good test for us. We're going to have to find different ways to break them down. I expect them to run hard for him. Obviously a new manager and a win last weekend. It's a different proposition to the one that probably we would have had 2 weeks ago.
You must have come up against Steve Cottrell many times in the past. What's your record like?
I can't remember, if I'm honest. Yeah, we have come across him a few times, maybe Shrewsbury, Bristol City, maybe back in the day. So, come across him a few times, and, he's intense, he's a winner, and he's going to want to win at the weekend. He's going to want to get on a roll there and kickstart their season. So, we know we're in for a difficult test and a different test, but look, we're at home. We're looking forward to the challenge, as we always do, and it'd be great to get outside and play in front of Priestfield again. In
terms of team selection, is anyone coming back into the group? Is anyone out of the group? I gather Josh Andrews is suspended.
Josh is suspended. Yep. We've picked up injuries. We've been hit by injuries, which has been tough this week. Obviously, it affected selection last week at MK Dons. It affected what we did midweek, and it will affect this weekend as well. So. Medical team are working ever so hard to get players back in the fold, and we just got to sit tight and wait and see where they are.
Does anyone come back into the squad, or is it as per Tuesday with or without Seb?
Maybe.
Maybe,
yeah.
What's the vibe in the camp like? I appreciate we had a great run, we've had a couple of bumps in the road, but do you sense the vibe is still as it was?
Yeah, I've got no issues with that. Yeah, the players are a good bunch. They train ever so well. I'm happy with what I'm seeing in training. I'm happy with what I'm seeing around the place. It's been a good start. We've had a couple of defeats on the spin in the league now, but we're fourth in the table. We're in a really good position, and I think if we'd have said at the start of the season that'd be the position after 10, 11 games, I think we'd have been more than happy with that. So I don't think we can get too worried about a couple of defeats. We obviously want to stem that and get a win on the board pretty quickly. But I have no issues with what I'm seeing in terms of attitude with the group and where they are.
Lovely. Dobbo, thank you. Ben, all yours.
Richard, obviously you've got a few guys that you're waiting on for Saturday fitness-wise. Just wanted to ask about Connor Marston, because he's obviously been around the group for the last few weeks. Do you have any kind of time frame on him as such in terms of his recovery?
Not one from recently, no. So he's come out of the boot now, which was tough for him because he was walking around in that thing for a while. So next stage for him, obviously more mobility, but it's not one that we're going to push. It's a longer term one, a bit of a nasty one. So we'll just take it as it comes. But he's making progress, which is a positive sign.
And the others more shorter term at least?
Yeah. But we're hoping that we might be able to get one or two out for the weekend. If not, that's why we have a squad. But it obviously restricts options off the bench. It restricts options in terms of what you do in certain positions and team selection and formation selection. So that's where we are with it. I would prefer it if we had more players available. Look, 2 weeks ago, before Gaz left us, I thought I was going to be the bad guy because we had almost a squad full of players, and I thought I was going to be leaving good players off the bench, and all of a sudden it's turned within the space of 2 weeks. So you take the rough with the smooth in football, and we'll just deal with it, no problem.
And you do have good options deeper in the squad. Guys that got a go on Tuesday and showed a little bit about what they can do. Yeah,
and that's what they're there for. They need to use those games to go like, this is me. It's a showcase for them, and one or two might do themselves a big favour in games like that you think are fairly insignificant. Not particularly big crowds, but someone suddenly goes, well, pick me, and puts themselves right in the frame. So they're always important games. Every game's important, regardless of the size of the crowd that you're playing in front of. You can only ever do yourself harm if you don't turn up and do the job properly. So why not do it properly and make sure that every time you go out there you hold high standards.
And with no Josh Andrews, any qualms about throwing Sam Vokes in from the start on Saturday? Obviously he's been building up his fitness up till now. Yeah,
he's an option. We have had to be careful with him. The other night was the first start he's had in a long time, and the first time he's done 45 minutes in a long time. So we're obviously at the hands of the medical team there in terms of whether he can do that again within a few days, and what that might look like in terms of the amount of minutes that he can play. It might be that he he has to come off the bench and make an impact because he hasn't got it in him to do it again, or it's a risk for us to do that. But as I say, we'll assess that over the next couple of days. We'll see where he's been. He's had an off-feet day today, recovering. He's going to be an important player for us, so we don't want to break him.
And how important is he kind of off the pitch as well, and particularly perhaps with Gareth being away at the moment, having senior guys like him with so much experience must bring so much to the group, even on the training pitch and behind the scenes.
Yeah. First of all, he's a great guy. He brings a wealth of experience, a wealth of knowledge. He's been working alongside myself and Josh Andrews to pass on that knowledge to someone who we think could be a similar type of player in Josh. Vokes has been instilling them little gems of information into Josh, and Josh is very receptive. He's a bright lad, so it's nice to sit in them conversations and listen to the two of them chat, and the respect that Josh shows for Vokesy and Vokes's career, which is really great. But look, Vokesy he's a reliable, dependable human being. He's great to have around the place, which is why we brought him into the fold in the first place. And he's going to be very useful for us. We've obviously had a sticky start with him because of his broken arm at the end of last season. So it's been hard to get him up to speed quickly enough. We'd have liked to have had him further along the line at this stage, but we've got to be careful. Bearing in mind his age. We're not here to break people for the sake of a couple of games. We want them here for the long term.
And I mentioned Gareth, just what's the latest from him? How is he? Have you been in touch with him much this week? Yeah,
good news. So I spoke with him yesterday morning and he sounded really upbeat, much better than he'd sounded earlier in the week. We spoke about, he'd watched the game the other night, we spoke about that. He was going to watch Cheltenham and wanted to get involved in team selection and tactics. So I told him what we had found in terms of watching Cheltenham so far, and we shared ideas. And then I got a call again last night, and he had been discharged from hospital. So the good news is that we thought it was going to be Thursday, Friday. He's out a day earlier. Really happy about that. He'd slept well. He was full of beans, and it was great to hear him in such good spirits. So real good progress. The game the other night was really the only one that we haven't done without him. He's back involved, and we had a good conversation last night about Cheltenham, and I'll put him on the speaker upstairs, and we'll have a chat with all the staff about the weekend and get our heads together.
Excellent news, and the players must be determined to go out there and get the win for him on Saturday.
Yes, they were devastated last week because they wanted to win for him. So that was a tough one for them. As I said before, football clubs are about a combination of all the people, and it's Gaz's turn at this moment in time to go through a pretty rough time in life. So it's up to the rest of us just to pull together until he's back in the fold. But it's going to take a few weeks. When he does come back, it'll be slowly. I'm not sure there's a time scale on that at this moment in time. But the good news is he's back home with his family and in creature comforts, and it's surely better for him to be repairing that heart alongside his family.
For sure. And how much are you looking forward to being in charge then at Priestfield on Saturday and being the manager for a home game?
I love it. I love it being here. The positivity around the place, the energy. I really enjoy. It just stands to reason. You got positive atmosphere. You get positive performances, and positive results follow. So I'm really looking forward to being here. I spoke last week about it being a beacon of positivity. I think I used that phrase last week, and probably this is more a personal reflection on the way that football's going. I don't know how you feel as journalists, but I'm not sure I like the way that I use the word enjoy loosely, how we see football nowadays compared to how it used to be. And by that I mean I went to a game last season, League One game between two sides, and I was sat as a neutral amongst the home fans. They lost 2-0. Some of the abuse that was going onto the pitch, like 10 negative comments for every one positive comment, and you watch the game and you watch the performance deteriorate in front of you, and you go, well, that was coming because the whole thing's just been negative, and you sort of walk out of the ground and 2-0 defeat, and people are moaning about the performance, and you go, wasn't exactly helped by the people around and watching it. And then a couple of weeks later I was watching, I don't know if you've seen it, the Big Match Revisited Saturday mornings, where they show all the old footage, And there was a game, I'm going to say maybe from the 70s, Watford against West Ham maybe. And I noticed a couple of things. It was, apart from the really tight shorts and the big collars and the fact there was very little grass on the pitch, they cut to the stands, and back in them days, like heavily male-orientated fan base, lots of flat caps, but there was a joy about being at football. You could see the faces, read the body language. And I know back in that era, people worked hard all week to go to football, and football was the big moment. There wasn't so much to do on a Saturday, but it looked like a joyful experience. And then I think Watford scored. They went down the right, ball across. Winger got there first. Ball across the face of goal. Fella taps it in from 8 yards, and the commentator shouts, "Wonderful goal! Wonderful goal!" And I'm sat there thinking, it wasn't brilliant, but then you start to listen to the choice of language, and they celebrate all the good in the game. Everything that was done well was celebrated by the commentators, and the big players in the day whose names we would know nowadays. When they did something, they could make a 10-yard pass, and they made it sound like he'd hit a 60-yard diagonal ball onto someone's, right into their path. And it just got me thinking about the way that we talk about football nowadays, and we tend to look a lot more at the negatives than find the positives. If you watch a game on Sky now, and they cut to the panel afterwards, you kind of get people going, well, this player didn't do this, and the team were a disgrace, and the manager hasn't done this, and you're kind of searching for negatives, and then that filters out into the public. So I think football can't keep going that way. There's got to be a change in it, and I quite like when I watch Palace on TV, for example. Now, I quite like what they're doing there in terms of South London. Palace being a reflection of a celebration of South London. I think the games there look fun to me. If I was a football fan and I wanted to go to a neutral venue, I would go to Palace. And I'd love for this place to be similar. I'd love for this to be a beacon of positivity for players to want to play here, for fans to want to come here. I really do think we've got good energy about the place, and we should really put ourselves on the map as that club that come to football at Gillingham, because it's a celebration of football, and we'll look for all the good in the game. Let's get away from looking at the negatives, shall we?
I'm going to lower the tone.
Go for it. Go for it.
Because when I was doing some research last week, I believe you were caretaker manager of Wycombe Wanderers here in 2009. The good omen is that Gillingham won that game, but it wasn't good
yes.
on the day.
Yeah. So Peter Taylor got sacked the day before. I was youth team manager at the time, 32 years of age, and got told you're taking the team tomorrow. I didn't have a choice, so I got told, and I took the team. So very little preparation time out here. My mum comes to the game. She was set up in the stand, and it was a good experience for me. As a young coach, you look back and you go, you think you're ready to go and do it, but actually when you look at all the learning I've had since, I was never ready. But I remember I was the second youngest coach on the touchline that day, to Eddie Howe. I don't know what happened to him since, but he's obviously not done bad for himself. So it was a great experience, and the nice thing is, and this is where relationships endure, when I got the job here, and it got announced, phone call went, and Peter Taylor's number, and I picked up the phone and said, I'm at your old stomping ground, and he said, I know, I've just seen it, I just want to call to say, fantastic appointment, really pleased for you, it's going to be a great fit. And you think, what a great guy. I loved working with Peter. I thought he was a top guy, and was disappointed to lose him back then. So yeah, that was my first experience of taking the team, and I've had a few since when Gaz has been off for operations and illness and that. But 32 years old and taking the team. I think some of the players are older than me on the day. So Simeon Jackson, late winner, chipped into the far corner, I think. That was the game. That's it, 3-2, yeah.
Goals in it, so
yeah.
Good game at least.
Yeah.
Well, let's hope Saturday goes well for the home team again.
Yeah, let's hope so.
But not quite so close.
Yeah, that'd be nice, yeah.
Are you getting an extra buzz as we get closer to the weekend? Because it's almost like the second coming, another first game for you here.
Yeah. I get a buzz from football anyway. I love the pressure. People talk about the pressure of management and being assistant manager, maybe not quite so much, but I love the pressure of it. You come alive for an hour and a half on a Saturday, and most people in their jobs don't get to feel them emotions, which is why they come to football. It stirs the emotions in you. So I always enjoy it. I try and take the emotion out of it during the 90 minutes because emotion can kill your thinking. It's you've got to think clearly under pressure. And when you're full of an emotional head, you make rash decisions or not the right decisions. So I try and take the emotion out of it as best I can once we get on to game day. But I love the experience. I think wins are brilliant. You go home and you're content. Losses sharpen you. You question yourself a lot and you look into what you can do better. So there's only ever any good that comes from match days. You either win or you learn.
Have you learned anything extra about your players in the last week, given a couple of defeats?
I was always interested to see what we were going to be like after a defeat because it was the one thing that we hadn't experienced so far. So I wanted to see why in the past there's been a slump. What is there a reason behind that? Do the group suddenly split if results go against them? I haven't seen any of that whatsoever. I see a determined group, a group that want to be successful together and are all pulling in the same direction. So I have no issues with anything I've seen since. Sometimes they're fine margins. I know last weekend we go 3-0 down, it looks like a disaster. You take the emotion out of it. I showed the slide to the boys the other day. I think we're actually on top in every statistic against MK Dons, but because of the story of the game and the way that the scoring went, it looks like a disaster and then a bit of a comeback. First half, obviously, we didn't play at the intensity that we wanted to. Second half was far better, and the stats, our stats that we used reflected that. There was a big swing in the second half. But we had more shots than them. We had greater possession. We had greater percentage of possession. The bottom line is put the ball in the back of the net, and they did it more times than us. So whilst I'm not big on stats, football's a human game, and I think we numerise it a little bit too much for my liking. I'm really happy with the human side that I'm seeing this week.
One final thing, can you understand, given what's gone on in the last few years here, why there are some people not panicking, but I don't know how to put it, after a couple of defeats, after the start you've had. I know it's a completely different squad, different managers and everything else, but is there part of you that understands why some people are panicking?
Yeah, I can understand why they might go, here we go again. But if you think it will manifest. We've got to push that right out of our mindset. As I said earlier, we can look at it two ways. We can go two defeats, doom and gloom, or we can go fourth in the table, in a really good shape. And that's the truth of it all. At the end of the day, it's the scoreline at the end of the game that means the result. And, you don't. If you're 3-0 up at half time, it doesn't mean the game's won. And the same here. We're looking at a 2-week sample period, a game that we could easily have won. In Harrogate, unfortunate to come off with a defeat in that game, and a tough game away at MK Dons, who are the league favourites. So, but if we look at the whole picture, we probably haven't played as well in some of the games that we've won earlier in the season, but we found a way to find a result. And we just got to do that again, back to basics a little bit, go back to what served us so well at the start of the season. I understand why people might feel like that. We've got to try and block that out and look at the positive side of things.
Exactly so.